Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Diversity and Inclusion Chat Series, which we host every Thursday. Thank you for taking the time to join these conversations about empathy, equity, and inclusion for autism and disability employment in India. Rangam and its Sourceable program are having these weekly talks and events on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter to highlight the need for greater representation of people with autism, neurodiversities, and other disabilities in the workplace. We wish you all would join and encourage others to join these events and give voice to a segment of a society that is underrepresented in the workforce. As part of this series today, we are going to have a conversation about the role of community in inclusion. Uh, to start with, I'd like to introduce my guest. My guest today is Shri Alka Vaidyanathan. She is the founder and director of at AMAZE Charitable Trust. She has doing that for more than 15 years. She's also the vice president of Autism Society of India. There's a southern chapter, but I feel that I am not qualified to introduce her. I'd like her to introduce herself. Hello, Alka ma'am. Please introduce yourself and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here. Thanks to Ragam and Mr. Chandramouli. Thank you. Um, about myself, I primarily look at myself. I have a son with autism who's 25. That is what brought me into this sector. So I look at myself first as a parent. But I just didn't want to stop there. So I went ahead and right from the time he was diagnosed, I always worked on, in the beginning, awareness and then advocacy and inclusion. So these have been the spaces that I try to work on. And in the process, of course, I've been the one of the founders of the Autism Society of India in 2006, which is based out of Bangalore and does a lot of work in the awareness and advocacy space. And then currently, I'm the founder and director of the AMAZE Charitable Trust, which again we started in 2012 with a view to helping, create a whole ecosystem that helps persons on the spectrum as well as related disabilities to, have a roadmap for life, if I can put it shortly. So yeah, that's.
So tell us a little about. Let's start with Amaze because that's where the largest contributions have been. So tell us a little bit about Amaze and its various activities and how it makes an impact.
Sure. So this was a stage in our life where, my son was about 16 and 17, and he is a person who has many talents, but he also has equal number of challenges. So we were not able to find a space that could really help him discover his life's, mojo or purpose, whatever you want to call it. And we felt that was very critical to set that for the rest of his life. And so we decided to, almost run it like a lab where we had a lot of, exploratory activities in many areas, ranging from technology to, life skills to music, arts, adventure sports, fitness. So, we exposed him and his, trainees, co-trainees to many, many areas, and it evolved along with them, and we finally came to this program which we call as AMEA, the AMAZE program for mentoring and empowerment of young adults, which aims at just that, whatever the name speaks for itself. And we try to come up with a roadmap for life, which includes their life skills, their independence, as the acronym life is what we use.
Mm-hmm.
And then we look at fitness, and we also look at the E, which could be the engagement or the employment, whatever it might take them to. So this has been the approach, which is very person centric, process focused sort of approach, and skill development. So basically, it's not a school, it's not a college, but that's what we mainly do. We also looked at other aspects. So when we started looking into adventure, for that matter, we've run over 20 adventure camps, both in collaboration with NALS in Kunur as well as in First Light Consultants in Pune. So where it's an inclusive camp. So it basically gives an opportunity to explore that area as well as meet with other individuals. We've been coordinators for art festivals for autism, where we are looking at different aspects like music, art, movement, modeling, what the child person can get exposed to as an alternate to whatever they may or may not be good at. See, the person individual needs a chance to explore many areas, and then they become, they can express in that area, and then they can expand it to become an employment. Many a time we were stumped as to what this child can be good at. We look at very traditional paradigms where we are looking at academics, at at functioning in the mainstream society, only that as inclusion. But many of them then fail into, they miss the bus, and then we don't know where to go. So I wanted to have something that will help such individuals who miss the bus also to find a different path, a different roadmap, where they're
Yeah.
still, having something very meaningful to do in their lives. And
Yeah, that's
technology is
true. I
also
mean, yeah, please.
technology is also a huge part of what we use. We look at the outdoors, the arts and all, but we also very, very technology focused for providing the access to whatever they may need. So
Yeah.
solutions and technology is a part of it.
Yeah. Uh, I also feel that society has created these little boxes where people are put in, and if you do not fit into the box, it becomes it. You are termed as different. But then, like for example, with individuals who are with autism or neurodiverse, there is this preconceived notion that comes they're only good at, I don't know, technology or maybe accounting. But that's not the case. Like I spoke with Ramamurthy sir, I mean, not me, but Nishit, our CEO,
Mm-hmm.
spoke with Ramamurthy sir a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling how art and creative arts also have a huge impact, and there are lots of neurodiverse individuals. So I was just wondering, is there the, how do you fight these misconceptions or preconceived notions about autism, and do you come across them in your daily life, and how do you change the views that you?
So absolutely, I myself have been in one of those boxes. I think till my kid was about 10, 12 years old, I followed the path. I did all the therapies. I tried to put him in the mainstream school. That was the goal that I was chasing. But somewhere down the line, that was not where he was fitting right. So I had to review those, beliefs that I had. And I think Dr. Parshuram Ramurthy has played a great part in that, changing my, point of view and perspective. He's been my mentor in some ways, where then I started looking at the other side, exploring, rather than the pushing the child to follow my lead, I started following the lead of my own child, trying to see what is it that interests him, what is it that makes him happy. So we were not all the time we were going against the grain, we started going with the grain. It did take a little bit of time, or 3 or 4 years, to get into that transition and actually come out with some outcomes with that. But then we pushed through only with the belief. So the first thing was the belief, the presuming of competence, as you call it, where we believe that there is something that will engage this young man, and people like him, something that he will be interested and he'll be, want to do. And we are there as facilitators to help him find that, rather than teachers who push content into in an individual. So that shift is what, made all the difference. So I can kind of relate to where some, the stereotypes are there with the parents, because I've been that parent. But I also urge everyone to look at, if it's not working, if it's working, great. There are individuals who are doing very well, with academics, who are neurodivergent in the mainstream, employment spaces. And yes, they are a right fit there, but there's at least an 80% that are not a fit for that. So when it's such a large chunk, then we really need to look at solutions that will also pan out to that population. So when you feel that the child is not really fitting in with the mainstream, then we need to look at exploring many paths, also looking at it from a lifespan approach. Because okay, so I pushed my child and made him write his 10 standard, just by many of our children with autism have very good rote memory. So I do have students who have completed their 10th or 12th, but their comprehension is not up to that level. So it's really not what they want to do. They're happier doing, visual arts or baking or music or something like that. And they're good at it. They're very good at it. They have certain very, precise skills for that, So why not? Why not, let them do what they're good at? And rather than this also, there was a thing of where parents, as a parent, I'm speaking, where we tend to be overprotective. We tend to be also uh, very in their lives, controlling all the parameters of their life, so to say, if I might put it that way. So to step back and become more of a facilitator, more of a person who scaffolds the process and is able to leave the scene. So this is what we want at the end of the day. When you look at the lifespan, we want them to become independent. So we really need to explore what is independence then, because they can't be independent without any support. So, what are the supports we can put in place? How can we give them access and support? So, that's where technology and other solutions come in.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, parents are, at least in traditional Indian family structures, we have this. Parents are our biggest support structures, our biggest, uh, whatever we want to term them. But that's what Indian traditional structures are. And I feel that, as you rightly said, parents need to be empowering and enabling instead of, like, uh, I
Yeah.
think mollycoddling is a word that can be used sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I understand where the parents also come from. The
Yeah,
concern they have for their children is like paramount.
absolutely.
But then there needs to be a paradigm shift of how thought processes work. And as you
Mm-hmm.
rightly said, that it takes time. Like for you, it took 3 4 years to actually gain some kind of traction and go against what your inherent parenting
Mm-hmm.
thoughts were, to see a marked difference. So yes, I mean, that's a lot. But let me ask you this: COVID has impacted everybody. COVID has been like having a huge impact. How has it impacted your organization's activities? How do you see individuals who are neurodiverse coping up with this sudden change? Some people were actually doing some things that were scheduled on time, and
Mm.
being
Mm.
neurodivergent, they have this entire timetable kind of mindset where they keep on doing things by scheduled or by rote, as you said.
Mm.
Now with COVID, it has been a little bit of a, not little, but a lot of change. How is that impacting individuals?
Well, I'll start at the beginning, because now what we are is totally different. The beginning, what you say holds good, that they did find it difficult to accept the change. They had a full routine going, most of our interns or trainees. We had 20 to about 20 odd people coming in. They found it difficult without the routine being in the four walls, because they were really active. Some of them go cycling like almost 10 kilometers. Some go 150 kilometers in the weekend. So you can just imagine not being able to do those kind of activities, was really tough on them. Uh, but what we did was, immediately, as soon as we knew that, this is what it is, we did help the parents to set up a new routine for them. So that was the first thing that we did. So it took them some time, maybe a month, I would say, to get onto the new routine. But once that was set, things were a little bit better. And right from the beginning, as I said, technology based intervention is what we do. So, and they have all the tools. So, we were also running an online program from 2016. So, we had a model in place also. So, we could quickly shift our some of our deliverables to the online modality, both for our young adults, as well as we do have a program for younger children in the areas of communication and literacy, technology based, teaching them alternative communication or using assistive technology, so that we could shift very easily. Now, most of our interns who had gone through our programs are very highly skilled in housekeeping as well as cooking. and all these life skills is a big focus, it's a big part of our program. So actually the parents found they were surprised with the level of skills the students had and the amount of help these children could give them. So they actually helped them because the domestic helps were not coming in, there were no, so most of them were very useful around the house. So that was the second aspect that was positive from this. And right now, of course, we had to again, go into a hybrid mode where sometimes when the COVID cases came down, we could do in-person classes. Otherwise, we quickly shift back to the online. So we have that kind of a mode where now, as an organization, we have become comfortable. Only, I would say, it took us almost 6 months to figure it out. What is the modality that will work for us, and another 3 to 4 months to actually have all the systems and resources in place. But now we do not, like Coimbatore is still under lockdown, so we still don't have an in-person mode. The outbound activities have suffered the most. We cannot resume them, but we are still supporting online with skill development, expressive arts, and the vocational products that some of our students were making. We started giving them kits that they can take it home, complete, and then bring it back. So we use that kind of a model where they could still do those activities. So we have adapted, but it took, as I said, it took its own time. But without this structure being adapted for them, I think it would have been really tough on both the there are many cases I hear. I do work with parents across India with their mental health. So there have been many cases where they've not been able to cope. Parents are not able to cope, or the children are not able to cope, and it has not been an easy time on them.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to somebody a few days earlier, and they were telling us that COVID has been like a two-edged sword. I mean, it has not been good at all for anybody. That is not what we are advocating. But COVID has made people who are neurotypical realize what people with disabilities go through every day, the inability to
Mm-hmm.
go out, do things, the restrictions that COVID placed on everybody has been like, and as you rightly said, adversity makes us all adapt, and adversity brings out the best in us. So, as like your organization, everybody is now moving on to hybrid
Yes.
models and trying to figure out new ways. And so, I wanted to ask you about self advocacy and how individuals and with autism and other neurodiversities, how they need to be, how are you making them self
Mm.
advocates, how are you empowering them, and how that works for them, and what are the positives for them?
Right. So when it comes to autism, there are three difficulties that make it very important for them to have this skill called self-advocacy. One is that autism is quite an invisible disability. When you look at a person with autism, you cannot really make out that they have autism. So they really need to explain to somebody else what the difficulty is, or somebody needs to explain. Otherwise, the other person from the other side, when you look at it, whether it's an employer or a neighbor or somebody on the road, misunderstands very often the behaviors of a person with autism. So that makes it very important. The second disability, the thing is that the disability itself is a communication and social difficulty. So, it automatically, like in other disabilities, where if you look at the visually impaired, or if you look at somebody who has cerebral palsy, they are quite, they become automatically become self advocates once they are empowered with some literacy skills and all that. But here, the difficulty being in communication and socializing, they need an additional step where they need to become aware that the other person will not understand, and you will have to communicate your needs to the other person. It is as simple as this. I just always take the example of, say, diabetes or some other food allergy. So if you're visiting somebody, and if I think I talked to you about this the other day also, that how do you expect the other person to know that you have this food allergy or you're diabetic? So you will tell that person, these are my needs. So it's as simple as that. So the first step for a person with autism is to be able to communicate what adaptations they need, what are their needs, and another third thing about autism is no one individual is the same as the other. Each one is very different. They are unique. So it is not possible to have as a company or something, or it's not possible to have one policy that fits all the persons on the spectrum. So it is very individualistic, the adaptations that need to be made. So again, it is very important that the person or somebody close to the person is advocating for them. So that being said, how to bring in these skills, it starts, I feel, from a very young age, where we need to work on communication rather than on compliance, collaboration rather than on compliance. Very often, we as parents or teachers are working on compliance, which is a very necessary thing to be able to work in a system, but it does not really give the space. So then you see persons with autism, 50% of them very compliant. They will just go by what you say. Then they are not able to advocate for themselves then. So along with the compliance, one needs to look at how they are able to communicate their own needs, as well as become be able to collaborate in a team. Very often we have, as parents, also looking at a very individualistic approach. So to teach those skills of collaboration, of communication, of also even confidence. So again, it comes to having coping strategies, building emotional intelligence. These are areas which then will help them to succeed in systems that are not their primary systems. Very often these decisions are made because they should survive and succeed in a primary system, but then we need to look at skills that will take them to another system and they can survive there. If as parents or teachers we have that kind of a viewpoint, then it is easy to build these skills.
Yeah, but I also wanted to know what is the role of society in general. I mean, society is not just an individual. There are many aspects and many factors, and everybody interacts with so many things as a
Mm-hmm.
person day in and day out. What kind of role does society have in bringing about inclusion as a, not as a practice, but as something that is inherent or something that is inbuilt? We need more inclusive societies. We need more inclusive, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, sidewalks and public transportation, name it,
Absolutely.
and we all need everywhere inclusivity is needed. Do you really think, I know we cannot answer this thing in like a 30-minute chat, but what I'm saying is we are just trying to have a conversation, but does society actually have a role in making it more inclusive, or does an individual have to do it, or do you think a state or somebody has to mandate that this is what it's supposed to be?
See, I think the state mandate is already there. In any country, if you go, everyone is compliant with the UNCPRD. We do have laws in place. We do not have one is the systems in place, the infrastructure in place, which the state has to play an active role in providing. And I think we need to advocate for that, for certainly. And I don't think anyone else will advocate for us. We have to advocate for ourselves. So having said that, I think society looks for, you know, uh, it is not no longer there is a value for being charitable. So we don't want to look at that kind of a model at all, right? So when we are looking at, we are not looking at that. Then what are we looking at? We are looking at sustainability. Then looking at persons with disability as a value add to the system. For that, you need to have success models. That is what society will base it on.
Yeah.
So, that is what we are all working towards. You, whether it is Rangam or AMAZE or all these organizations, we are looking at success models, which then society can then have the belief that, okay, this person is different. They're going to act in a certain way, but they're still being of value to me or value to society. That is when the respect is got from
That is,
society. So,
yeah, that is exactly what Ramamurthy sir was saying. Sympathy is
yeah.
just words. What we need is empathy. Empathy is action. Empathy brings
Mm-hmm.
about, like, as you said, charity has no value. Charity, at a certain stage, charity ends. This is like a value proposition where it becomes empathetic. You do this and this. So, I mean, that is something that we felt was very powerful in the way he said. Uh,
Yeah.
we are coming to the almost to the end of this, and I really wanted to ask you for a small personal anecdote or a small experience, because you have such a vast experience of what makes neurodivergent individuals so unique. I mean, there are a lot of, as we already spoke, there are a lot of misconceptions and preconceived notions, but then I may not have interacted with as many people as you have, so I would like to get like a unique personal story that
Yeah.
you can share with all of us.
So I will just talk about the first batch of AMAZE. We had just these five students. One was my son, and there were four other individuals. They were all 16, 17-year-olds. At that point, they would have been termed as severely disabled with severe behavioral challenges, whatever you may call it. You can have all those adjectives added there. But we went ahead with a positive belief and a systematic approach. One of them is now a singer. He's done his second level of the Trinity College of Music, and he's totally into music. My son, uh, I thought I thought his interest was in cooking, but he surprised me. He's an artist. His art is actually being put up in our exhibitions and selling for money. There is another individual who's a fantastic baker. One of them is this long distance cyclist. The one I said goes 150 kilometers. So you can see that each one of them for me is that example of the belief that we need to have, that all these individuals, and wherever they are in the spectrum or even other disabilities, they can find their purpose of life and go forward with it.
Akila ji, I would like to thank you so very much for being so generous with your time. I mean, as I said earlier, also 30 minutes are not enough to actually have a conversation. I wish we had more time, but respecting everybody's time, I'd like to say thank you for giving us this time. We would like to stay connected with you, and we would like to learn a lot more from you. And as we keep on making a little progress, again, progress is like, even a little step for us is progress, because there is a mountain to move and we are just starting. But I really wanted to thank you for your time, and if you have any last thoughts, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Please do, believe in your child if you're a parent, and if you're an organization, do give our individuals with who are neurodiverse a chance, and they will surprise you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for coming and joining us and taking this time. Uh, we keep we want all of us to keep this conversation going, and we will again meet you next Thursday at 3 o'clock. And thank you very much. You all have a nice day. Thank you, Akila, once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Daraj.